Let's talk about loading data into R, especially for your Unit 2 discussion where you'll start to use large-scale data sets. For example, the World Value Survey has several options of data for you to download going back 6 waves. I've selected wave 6, the most current, and on this page you'll see options for citing your use of the data if you wanted to put it in a report, the questionnaire that was used in collecting the data, the code book, which is useful for figuring out what do those columns or variables mean. Once I get it into R, they have very obscure labels that don't really tell me what they are, so I'll visit the code book to figure that out. Scrolling down the page here, I see the statistical data files ready for download. Notice there are older versions available, however, it's recommended that you use the most current. And I would recommend that you simply start with the R option, and if that does not work on your system, work your way down the list. And we'll go through the first 3 as you see here. Once you click on one of these download options, you'll come to a page that asks for your information. You can input that you're a student, your name, Purdue Global, and your Purdue Global email address. As far as its intended use, you can use language exactly like you see here. Then scroll down to the bottom of your screen and select that you have read the conditions and download. In your download folder, you'll see that zip file, and you want to drag that to your working directory that you're using for the class. Notice I've labeled that here, MM325. I put my zip file into this folder and extract the contents by double-clicking on it. You'll see in a moment the contents of that zip file load into your folder, and this is if I were to use the SAS option to load the data. This file here is there if I use the SPSS option and resulted from running this SPSS zip file. These 2 files resulted from extracting the contents of the R zip file. It's important that they are in the working directory, so let's take a look at how I can set that I want to extract files from that directory. Go to RStudio Tools and Global Options. Notice right now it's thinking I want things taken from the download folder. So I'll click on Browse, go to where my working directory is located. On the desktop, MM325, open. Notice it's now set to that directory. I click Apply. Okay. Then I need to reload RStudio. So I might elect to save my current work, close RStudio, and reopen. Once we have RStudio reopened, it will then take any commands and pull from data files within that working directory that we just set. So our MM325 working directory is set for when we reopen RStudio. And we're going to attempt to load some of those data sets that we have in the working directory. If I want to load an RDS file, then I would use the read RDS command and place the name of the file in quotation marks. So if we go back here, you see the name of that file here. That is what you would place in your code, and we can attempt to run that. Notice after doing so, I have in my data window this WVS1, as I've titled it for World Value Survey, first attempt at loading data. And I can see how many observations or cases, as well as how many variables. I can also take a sneak peek at what is in the data by using the head command, calling the data. And if I scroll down here, I can see the first 6 lines of the variables. And I can scroll through right or left. And notice those column names. As I mentioned before, it will be very obscure when you're looking at the data in R. So that's why you want to revisit that code book to figure out, for example, what does variable 47 mean? So we have attempted to load and successfully load the data using the R file. Sometimes you may experience bugs, and if you're not able to resolve those, then you have the option of using some of those others, such as the SPSS data file. For this one, you'll need to call this library Haven and use the read SAV command. Notice we have the title of that data file, as you see here in our working directory. And we can run that line to load the data in that way. Oh, but we need our library command. So let's highlight both of those lines and run again. So it's loading using that library that contains the code that will enable you to download an SPSS file into R. Then it's using the read command to take the data from that type of data file and format it in R. And you can see here on the right, WVS2 is ready to go. I can look at the initial 6 lines of that data by running this command. Look down here, it looks exactly the same, but this has updated since I just ran that command, head WVS2. For a second try at loading this data. If that was not successful, then you might try one of the other options, such as the SAS data file option. Now for this one, I have not pre-populated the code here. If I did not know what to place in this to read the SAS data file, I could simply type read and then look at some of the options. Notice there's the one we just used for SPSS. Their files are coded SAV. SAS files I can read with this function. So I choose that. I've already loaded the library Haven. Now if I go back here and start that command again, notice the library for each of these is listed over here on the right. Haven for both the SPSS and SAS commands. So I've already loaded that library. I'm ready to use read SAS. I can come over to my working directory and copy all of the text naming that SAS data file, come back to RStudio. I need quotations around it, paste that information that I copied from the file name into RStudio. Then I'm ready to run this line to load the data in this way. And notice we've been starting from scratch here, so I need to call this something. I'll call it our third attempt at loading the world values survey. Now we're ready to run. And it'll take just a moment, but we should see in the right-hand side here, WVS3 with the same information, because the data set itself is not changing between all these file types. It's just they are different options for your use. See, there we have WVS3, and we could look at the initial information from that load as well.